Let me bring in my legal dream team today. Darren Kavanoki joining us from the left coast. Great criminal defense attorney, NoCuffs.com. Also the host of Deadly Sins.
Deadly Sins.
I like the way you say
on
it.
Investigation Discovery.
Perfect. Joey Jackson also joining us. Great to see you, Joey, criminal defense attorney up there in New York, and Trinity Hundredmark right here in studio. Great to have you. All right, let's talk about victim impact, okay? Let's talk about victim impact, what the rules are versus what the rules should be. Should a family be allowed to directly address the killer, the one who committed the crime, the one who has ruined their lives?
I mean, it's a balance, and as a defense attorney, I don't ever want, you know, the victim's family coming in and, you know, really speaking to the judge or to my client. I mean, because it just taints everything that's going on. We want to take as much emotion out of it as possible and just look at the straight, you know, the crime, the facts, and I'm trying to probably boost up my defendant. So as a defense attorney, you don't really want the family coming in and giving an emotional plea and doing that sort of thing, but they probably have a right to, Vinny, especially given most of these circumstances that are so horrendous.
Joey?
These are tough days and these are tough times, Vinny, and I've been, you know, it's on both sides. As a prosecutor, certainly, you want that family to emote. You want that family to express, how has this impacted you? How has it affected not only you, but everyone around you, that your loved one, that the person that you so enjoy will not be with you? And certainly, from a prosecutor's perspective, you want them addressing the victim, but it needs to be done through the judge in telling the tale. And I could tell you from a defense perspective, Vinny, it is so awful to sit there and to have these families say what they have to say. The emotion behind it, it certainly does have an impact, and that's why they call it a victim impact statement.
Thanks to our affiliate KTVT. Many of you, everyone, talking about this one on social media, and I want to take a look at what you're saying in just a moment. But think about what this family had to go through. First, you begin with your child falls in the pool, and then all of this happens. And then, okay, you've got a decision. You've got that agonizing decision. Okay, we're going to end the child's life because she has no life. And then you find out how you have to do it. You have to starve her to death. And then it takes 8.5 days for this family. Here's what folks are saying. Hulf's Jason, it is horrible to think that the only available action is to starve someone to death, and the medical community and lawmakers think that's somehow better. Take a look at another one. This is Diane. Horrific. We treat animals better. We need to change the laws somehow. Jennifer. At this point, I am ashamed to live in Texas. We're supposed to protect our children. This is a tough one. Now, this is a complicated issue, not an easy one. That's why I've got the Dream Team with us. And joining us is Amé Robert, civil attorney in Houston, Texas. Thank you so much, Amé. Amé, let me start with you. And talk about the laws in Texas. And what the grandfather wants is an alternative. But I'm trying to figure out what could that alternative be? And what would it take in Texas for that alternative to, you know, become the law?
Sure. Euthanasia is illegal in all states. However, there are 4 states that have what is called physician-assisted dying. And what it comes down to is a doctor cannot make an overt act to end a life. So he can't give a patient a lethal injection. But in those 4 states where there's that exception of physician-assisted dying, he can prepare basically a cocktail and give it to the patient, and the patient can self-administer it. And so that's what the alternative would be. In Texas, we don't have that alternative, and I'm not sure I see that happening in Texas anytime soon, which is a conservative state and values sustaining life.
Joey Jackson, this is not an easy issue. This is the most heart-wrenching of all issues, because you're talking about a child, and then the child can't make any decisions because of the medical state she was in. He was 21 months old, for goodness sake. This is a tough one, though. This is not easy. Any decision you make, any choice made here is a difficult choice.
It's absolutely gut-wrenching, and you can't even begin to fathom or pretend to know what heartbreak and agony that family went through from seeing such a beautiful, lovely, full of life, vivacious child. And now, of course, there's not much that can be done. But I can tell you that, necessity, as we all know, and we've all heard, is the mother of all invention. And I think as a result of this, the legislature certainly will look at ways to do this in a very humane way that does not allow a child to starve. Now, with regard to self-administering, I don't know how you do that because, of course, she's incapacitated, so it'd be hard to self-administer something that would, help her die. But to see someone starve like that, who's a child that you love so dearly, is just tragic and so hard to talk about, Vinny.
Darren Kavanaugh, it took 8.5 days in this case.
Yeah, look, we treat dogs better. And I think the grandfather said it so eloquently that even condemned criminals who are sentenced to death are treated better. And of course, the irony here is the reason that the law requires her to starve is because of the dignity, because of the value that we place on human life. And then to require her to meet such a horrific end is it's just gut-wrenching. And so I think there's got to be a solution. And to the point that Joey raised about how a young child or somebody who's incapacitated would be administered the drugs, even in a state where they allow that physician assistance, it's got to be that the parents or somebody else has to stand in the shoes of that affected individual. This should never be repeated again.
And when you talk about physician-assisted suicide or death or euthanasia, you're always talking about adults. Well, here we're talking about children, much, much different situation, right? There's only one place in the world where terminally ill children can ask to die. We're going to talk about that next and how that impacts cases like this. So here you're talking about a minor making the choice. So obviously that's a minor that is a little bit older. Take a look at the rules that are proposed in Belgium for all this. We put that up on the screen. The child must be in unbearable pain, must be assessed by 2 doctors and a psychiatrist or psychologist. Their legal representatives must also consent. The child must understand what euthanasia means, and there must be written consent by the child's parents. So even if you wanted to apply euthanasia to a child, how would you do it? Let's bring back in the dream team. Aimé Robert, logistically, trying to figure out, there's so many different layers of issues that make this so complicated. Belgium tried to deal with it, but they're not dealing with a 21-month-old who's incapacitated, who obviously can't understand it. So how could we do it if we wanted to do it in this country? How could you make it so, like, it really works?
Right. I think we have to really analyze this issue, and I think we've avoided it for a long time. First, we need to look at the age of the child, and that certainly a law that applies to adults shouldn't apply to infants because they're completely different issues. One can't make a decision for themselves versus the other. And so I think we have to look at what kind of rights do parents have and can they make for their children? And then when they're in an incapacitated state, is it really much different to do a physician-assisted death versus starving a child to death? And so I know the law makes that distinction because it sounds a little better and it's nicer, but what's the real difference? And I think people really need to take a look at this issue. It doesn't come up that often, so I think we've been able to avoid dealing with that specific legislation. But clearly, it does happen, and so it's time to look at it.
Yeah, and Trinity, what we're really talking about here, it's not an argument like letting the child die or not letting the child die. It's everyone, both parents are on board for this is what needs to happen. It's how it should happen.
Well, and in this instance, and in most instances we're talking about, Vinny, the determination's already been made that there's nothing else that can be done to save the child. There's no question this child was going to die. And as a parent, having to sit there and watch your child suffer for days, I mean, there's nothing that could be more agonizing, nothing. I mean, so to provide not only the child, but also the parents, the family, that closure that they need and that peace at what the end of somebody's life should be a peaceful end is something that we need to address and we need to explore because it's just not right.
And it's very clear from this case that removing the feeding tube, stopping the hydration was not a peaceful end for this child. It was 8.5 days of absolute agony for the family and for the child as well. So let's hope that this story, this case, wakes people up to think about the issue and start to talk about the issue and try to figure it out, because I think we owe it to this beautiful little girl who lost her life. All right, time for today's Legal Insanity, where my dream team and I break down the unusual, weird, and just bizarre legal stories of the day. First up, a deaf couple came home from a Hawaiian vacation, but the airline lost their bag. When they got it back, there was a note attached, quote, "deaf and dumb." The airline apologized, saying a worker used a poor choice of words. So, dream team, is it case closed? Is there a case here, Darren?
Yeah, look, the court of public opinion, I think, will speak on this one and say that throwing them some frequent flyer miles probably isn't enough. I think that kind of insensitivity only changes when a company is forced to open up their checkbooks, Vinny.
All right, next, the guy says he got kicked out of a movie theater for bringing his own snack. He had some strawberries. Very delicious. He says he's a type 2 diabetic and wanted something healthy. So when he refused to throw out those fresh, delicious, juicy strawberries, he claims that the manager, choo, 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 had police throw him out. So, was he wrong, breaking the law, trying to sneak in a snack, or did the theater overreact, Joey?
Listen, Vinny, have you not heard the rule of thumb? If you're going to have strawberries, bring them for the rest of the gang. That's what it's all about, because sharing is indeed caring. However, listen, it's about reason, it's about discretion, and this is where discretion comes into play. You have type 2 diabetes, you need those strawberries in order to live properly and to view the movie with vigor and joy. Should not have been kicked out at all.
Trinity, us type 1
that's how they
diabetics
make
like
their
strawberries too, you know. Darren, you have something funny to say. Go ahead.
No. But if you look at the revenue model in movie theaters, they make most of their money from the concessions. So it's just following the dollars there, Vinny.
Yeah. All right, next.
Follow the logic.
A man went to deposit $31,000 in his bank account, but the teller mixed up the names and put it in the wrong account. An 18-year-old got the money instead. Guess what? Deputy said he already took out $25,000. He claims the money was an inheritance from grandma. So, is this finders keepers, or is the teen going to find himself in hot water, Trinity?
I think he's going to find himself in hot water, Vinny. I mean, look, he should know. It's the sort of reasonable standard. Did he know or should have known that that $31,000 was not his? And my guess is he may be a teenage boy, and so he probably doesn't have all his brain in all the time, but he should have probably known that wasn't his.
Joey,
You
finders
think?
keepers?
No, come on. You think he didn't know it was his? It's some inheritance? That's something that can be established and proven, and I suspect that when they do the paper trail in the investigation, there is no inheritance, and he was having a good time. Fork the money over.
Darren, isn't this like, though, when you go to a store and they put the wrong price tag on an item and you get to buy it for that price?
No.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm just a little upset that something like that's not going to happen with an unusual name like Kavanoki. We don't get those kinds of mix-ups. But I bet you the fine print when you're opening up your account protects the bank and allows them to go after and grab that money back. Although collecting from this teenager, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah,
good luck.
Good luck with that, right? All right, you ever been cut off on the roadway and wish you could get revenge? Well, sometime the universe lends a helping hand. We'll play you the whole video for you next. And the Oscar Pistorius murder trial on hold for now. But when he does take the stand, what would you ask him? Hashtag on the case. All right, someone caught a case of road rage on video, and it's being called instant karma. Why? Because things didn't end well for this aggressive driver. Watch what happens from CNN's Jenny Moose.
A Florida woman used her phone to record a guy in a pickup tailgating her. She was in the fast lane of U.S. Highway 41, doing a little over 55 in a 50-mile-per-hour zone. Finally, he cut into the right lane. Sped by, then he dropped back and pulled alongside, giving her a prolonged middle finger salute. but maybe he should have kept his hands and all of his fingers on the wheel, because when he cut in front of her,
that's what you get! All on video, buddy!
the laughing lady pulled over and called 911.
All right. A lot of people reacting to this one today on a couple of different fronts. You know, one, the road rage driver cutting her off, but also the woman with the camera in her hand. But let's take another look at everything in slow-mo if we can, instant replay. Take a look at this. And there you see him giving the one-finger salute as he drives by. He's not paying attention to what's in front of him. And the woman driving is videotaping him. So, I mean, no one's really paying attention here, are they? Then the car cuts in front. We see what happens as it ends up smashing on the side of the road. And again, she's capturing this on videotape while she's driving also. Now, cops caught the guy, charged him with careless driving and leaving the scene of an accident. But how about her? Let's bring in the legal dream team. And Mike Brooks, let me start with you. I mean, to me, and I think a lot of other folks on this one, it's absolutely dangerous, ridiculous what he's doing, but what she's doing isn't too much better.
No, it's not too much. It's no better. To be honest, she's driving along. She's holding up traffic because she's too busy on her trying to record everybody. They should get her and charge her with failure to pay full time and attention. He got charged. She should get charged too.
Let's take a look at what some of the folks are saying on Twitter. You've got Lurleen tweeting, I truly believe in karma, so yes, he got what he deserved. Road rage is scary for anyone. So the karma front, we get that. Anita tweeting, no, she should have gotten out of the fast lane and let him by. Typical non-road etiquette these days. And Beretta tweeting, why wasn't she cited for videotaping with her cell? What do you think of that, Darren? What do you think about going after her?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. What people forget oftentimes is that these cars, they're dangerous weapons. Think about it. If you try and hit somebody with your car, they're going to charge you with assault with a deadly weapon.
That's right.
So I get her feeling of resentment for being cut off. I mean, who among us hasn't been the victim of some road rage driver? And by the way, to all of you, I apologize. But seriously, she's got to take the high road, and we all need to learn to do this. They got to go after her for this.
Joey.
No way. Innocent as charged. She's driving. Look, people need to slow down. They're going too fast. She puts it on her phone to memorialize his antics and to otherwise stay safe so this guy doesn't cut her off. And this is what happens. Now you're going to charge her? Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
This person got what he deserved, although I'm glad and I hope that he's okay. But it'll teach him a lesson, Vinny.
Where's my ticket book? Where's my ticket book?
Trinity, final vote here.
Oh, I don't know. I
Mike
can
is
see
gonna
both
give me a
sides,
ticket.
but I think I may have to go with the lady with the cell phone on this one. I mean, I think he's being right behind her, and we've all had those jerks beside us. We've all hoped it happened, and she just got her wish that day.
Yeah, the scary part for me is she was videotaped when he was behind her.
Right.
How do you videotape that? Oscar Pistorius next. This hour on the case, a husband convicted of brutally murdering his wife who was dying of cancer, but did the jury get it all wrong? And where is little Relisha Rudd, allegedly kidnapped by her godfather? Police admit for the first time he might have killed her. But first, it was the day we were waiting for. Oscar Pistorius on the stand. But a problem in court means we won't hear him testify today. Oscar Pistorius gets a break today. The judge's assistant gets sick, and he doesn't have to testify. In fact, if the judge's assistant can't return to the trial, they're going to have to do the whole trial all over again. And if that happens, who does it help? Well, in this case, I think it's the prosecution. They have not presented an organized, straightforward case. A mistrial here would give them a chance to forget about trying to surprise the defense and surprise the judge with their case, and just do it the old-fashioned way. Present a simple story. A story of a jealous lover who snapped and shot his girlfriend as she screamed in terror. Now that's a story that would make sense to me.
We cannot proceed this morning, and we're also not sitting next week One of my assessors is not well, so this court is not properly constituted. I'm just wondering if counsel would like to make any submission, because I suggest that we postpone this matter to the 7th of April, which is actually our recess week. And I know a lot of people might have made plans for that week. So that's why I'd like to hear from counsel if that week might possibly be the week that we should look at.
All right, so hurry up and wait. The wheels of justice sometimes turn slowly in other parts of the world as well, folks. Let me bring in my dream team. With me, criminal defense attorneys Trinity Hundredmark, Darren Kavanaugh, and Joey Jackson. And let's take a look at what this all means today, this delay, right? Today's the 28th, so we've got no court on the 31st, so that does it for the month of March. We move forward into April, no court on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, and now the judge is looking at the 7th of April as the day that the defense would start if, in fact, her assistant can come back. Well, let's take a look at who we're talking about and who's missing here. It's the person who sits right here next to the judge, the assessor. And the assessor, very important. There's actually two of them. He's there every day. She's there every day taking tons and tons of notes because they have a real important job inside that courtroom, ladies and gentlemen. And again, here's what she normally looks like. This is the woman who we hope she feels better and gets well. She looks, I guess, okay to me there. I don't know. But she was obviously not feeling well. But the bottom line is, here's what we know about her and what her role is. She is an attorney. She had some sort of a scheduled hospitalization. And if she doesn't return, the trial is going to start all over again. So what does she actually do? She's an assessor. She is a layperson. She happens to be a lawyer, but it could be any sort of layperson with specialized expertise, like a doctor or a lawyer, who assists the judge with the facts, not the law. And at the end of the case, the assessors can dissent from the judge's decision, kind of like when the Supreme Court has a dissenting opinion. So it's a very important. It's almost like a juror not being there, and that's why the trial cannot go forward. All right, Joey Jackson, your initial reaction to this delay, because the buildup, the defense case, we've been waiting, they've been waiting. It looks like everyone was ready to go. And then Pistorius, all of a sudden, hurry up and wait.
Well, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would make the conspiracy argument that, wow, you know what? All of a sudden, while the defense is evaluating and getting their case together and structuring and organizing, oh, I feel sick, I can't go anymore. And so you could say that, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist. People get sick. We're not robots. We have to, live in the real world where things do happen. And as a result, may she get well soon, may the trial resume, and may Oscar Pistorius testify.
Yeah, what's it going to be like for Pistorius, Trinity, if he was all geared up, coming into court today with his team ready to testify, and all of a sudden, all right, come back in a couple weeks?
Well, and I'll try to not be a conspiracy theorist and say most, if you're in a trial and you've got those engines going and you're ready to go and you've probably already been prepared to testify, well, it sounds nice in theory that they're going to have all this extra time, that you totally lost the momentum. Your adrenaline was up, you were ready to go, and now you've just kind of sunk back down, and now you got to kind of gear back up again. I'm sure they're going to be talking about preparing him more. It just sort of sets you off the course. You've been prepared to go one way, and now it's probably taken them off a little bit as well. So as much as, you may want to say conspiracy, oh, he wanted this to happen, I don't know that you do, because you're just working towards something, and I'm sure for everybody, they kind of just want to get it over with.
All right, Darren Kavanaugh, let me ask you, if in fact she is so ill, and we hope not, that she can't return, and they've got to start this trial from the beginning again, who gets the advantage? I think it's the prosecutors, because they don't have to worry about trying to surprise anyone anymore. They could just go ahead and lay out a straightforward case.
Well, yes, I agree with you, Vinny. I think generally retrials favor the prosecution, and in this particular case, yes, they can go straight ahead, and it also gives them a time to reassess and present something entirely different, because they've seen where the defense is going, they see how the defense has prodded for some weaknesses, and now they get the chance to shore all of that up if they do get a retrial. And I guess I do have a difference of opinion. I'm not a conspiracy theorist either. either. But I think Oscar Pistorius, from all of his competitive athletic endeavors, I think he's going to take advantage of this lapse in time. He'll be able to get that momentum going again. They're used to ready, set, go, and I'm sure he's going to be able to rise to the occasion, use this extra time to prepare to his advantage.
All right, the judge already gave Pistorius' defense team time to get their case ready, but now they're getting 7 more days. Next, will 7 more days for Oscar Pistorius be enough to get his story straight? Plus, could this mysterious floating object be part of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370? Coming up, we'll explain why it just might be.
My lady, there are a number of state witnesses, or up to now state witnesses, whom we could not consult. We need your indulgence to consider the statements of those witnesses in the police docket, to see who would be available and who would be available and willing to consult with us. We asked the court to consider to grant us indulgence till Friday morning, which will give us 2 days to go through all the lists and see who we can contact and who will be available and willing to talk to us.
Well, the defense had 2 days. Now they got a whole bunch more days. They have until April 7th to begin their case. And what we're talking about here are all the witnesses who the prosecution had on the list and then only called 18 of them. Dream Team back with me as we take a look. This is 107 potential witnesses. Prosecutors called this many witnesses to the stand. So here's my question for you defense attorneys. Are you going to reach out to all these other witnesses who weren't called to try to find out what, if anything, they could say or could not say to help you or hurt you? Joey Jackson, go ahead as I keep marking all of them.
And that's what takes longer than the 2 days, and that's why the conspiracy theorists would say, boy, oh boy, how convenient that this assessor got ill now. But absolutely you're going to reach out, Vinny. Why? Because there are a couple of reasons why prosecutors don't call witnesses. One is the one we all know of. We want to streamline the case. We want to just move forward. We want to make it simpler. And the other is because they're not going to say the things you want them to say. So you better believe, as a defense attorney, I'm speaking to them all.
Darren,
yeah,
you know,
wait a second.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just got to rebut something here, Joey. Why would it be that these defense lawyers hadn't talked to these witnesses already? Why? Are they overwhelmed and not doing their job?
Because
What's
they're not
going
as
on?
prepared as Darren
Cavanoki. Each one of them. Or Joey Jackson. But besides that, they should have known, the defense, if they're doing their job, they had already talked to all these witnesses. They knew exactly what they were going to say.
In an ideal world.
In every single, of course, but in every single case I've been involved in where the prosecution brings this long list of witnesses and then during the trial they call an audible and all of a sudden instead of 20 witnesses you hear from 3, that's a not guilty waiting to happen in every single one. That is a bad sign about lack of preparedness, lack of vision, lack of clarity from the prosecutor. Great news if you're on Oscar's side of the table.
Trinity, how many of these prosecution witnesses do you think at this point the defense may end up calling? Because you've got all of these men and women who may have some information.
Well, they certainly don't want to call anybody that's got information that's going to hurt Oscar. And I agree with Joey earlier, so now I'm going to agree with Darren. I think they probably talked to all these people before trial, and if they hadn't, they should have. And they should know what they're going to say. And so they should only pick and choose the ones that may help their case. Keep in mind, these are all supposed to be prosecution witnesses, testifying for the prosecution, helping their case. So there may not be a lot.
So why aren't they testifying?
Well, exactly, which does leave some question, but they're supposed to be testifying for the state. They're supposed to be their witnesses. They've probably vetted out what they're going to say. I don't know that we can really speculate as to how many, since they were on the prosecution's witness list to begin with.
But Trinity, this may be one of the biggest problems in this case is that there's so many should-haves. The prosecution and their team should have preserved the integrity of the crime scene. The prosecutors should have gotten into those cell phones, I don't know, a little bit more than a couple of days before the trial starts. And now we have another shoulda. So I don't know how all these shouldas line up in terms of who wins this case.
All right, Joey, let me ask you this. How important is the testimony of these 18 versus one Oscar Pistorius? Once he
Therein
testifies.
lies the million-dollar question. I think that you have to evaluate his testimony. Is he credible? Is he believable? Does he give a prior inconsistent statement? And to a large degree, Vinny, we all know he's locked in. Why? Because he gave that affidavit, which he spelled out chapter and verse how this actually happened. And that he'll have some explaining to do for us all.
All right, now just because court was canceled today didn't stop everyone at home from tweeting questions out. Now, if you could ask Pistorius anything, what would it be? Hashtag on the case, that's next. Plus, a cancer patient brutally murdered her husband, now serving life in prison, but now a huge twist. He might be innocent.
I woke up around 1:56 in the morning. I heard sounds. It seemed like somebody was involved in a fight.
I remember that I was awakened by 3 loud bangs. And I remember my wife asking me, what was that?
I said to my husband, it sounds to me as if there's a family murder.
And I said, I think it's gunshots.
I heard the lady scream again. I jumped out of bed.
The petrifying screams, I heard that moments before the gunshots.
The deceased changed position from a standing position to a seated position on top of the magazine. That creates a break in between the first shot and the other.
Michelle Berger, the first witness, said she heard the following.
Bang, 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 bang.
A shot, a pause, shot, shot, shot.
The shot at 370 caused the deceased death.
All right, when court resumes April 7th, we expect Oscar Pistorius on the witness stand, and a lot of comments coming on Twitter and Facebook. Let's take a look at what folks are saying with our dream team. A question that I asked was, what is the one big thing the defense has to prove? Lauren Katie, that Oscar Pistorius screams like a woman. Otherwise, he's toast. Okay, now the other thing that we did here is we asked folks, what question would you ask Oscar Pistorius? So what we're going to do with our dream team of great criminal defense attorneys, you all will play the role of Oscar Pistorius and try to answer the questions from our viewers and followers. First question for you, Darren Kavanoki, playing Oscar Pistorius. Why didn't you physically make sure you could see your woman before shooting?
Well, the darkness, because of my fear, because of my vulnerability, not having my legs. I don't know. I'm still hung up on that Aerosmith song, Dude Shrieks Like a Lady. I think Lauren's absolutely right about that. I think he's toast.
All right, next question, Mr. Joey Jackson, being Oscar Pistorius. Prove to me that Riva wasn't afraid of Oscar, that he doesn't have anger problems and gun-crazy issues. Prove to me you don't.
I can prove it very easily. Let's look at those 1,700 text messages. What did the prosecution do? They took 4 of those messages that talked about me being angry, that talked about me snapping. What about the other times that I called her my rock star, my baba, my baba, my everything? That's what our relationship was all about. Don't be misled by the prosecution.
Marcia, first, I believe Pistorius' version. Wow. But the defense has to prove that he screams like a woman. Marcia praying for Oscar. What does a woman sound? I mean, I was going to ask Trinity to scream like a woman, but she is a woman, so she would scream like a woman. Won't make you do that. Let's go to our last one. Okay, Trinity playing Oscar Pistorius. Why didn't you check on Riva first? This is from Kelly. Why didn't you check on Riva first if you thought there was an intruder in the house? Oscar?
Well, it was the middle of the night. I was tired. I just woke up. I was stunned. Maybe I took some Ambien the night before. Not sure. I was a little groggy. And I just reacted. And it was the wrong reaction, but it was the first thing that came to my mind. I was fearful. I was so afraid for my life and for my woman's life that I thought someone was in there to get us. It all happened very fast. All I could think of was that window and that someone was coming in after us.
All right. All right, we'll see how Oscar Pistorius holds up. But we've got some other breaking news that we're waiting to hear from Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police about missing 8-year-old Relisha Rudd. There you see the microphones. The hunt has expanded hundreds of miles. Can highway billboards help catch her suspected kidnappers is one of the questions out there. But we're waiting for word, and they're expected to speak any moment now. So We don't know what that news will be, but of course you're going to see it and hear it right here on the case. Officials in D.C. expected to speak any moment now about the latest in the search for Relisha Rudd. We know yesterday what they were saying was not good news. The news that they had not seen her together with her alleged abductor in quite some time, in a couple of weeks. So we're waiting for a word from officials in D.C. on the search for Relisha Rudd. Don't go anywhere. All right, time for today's Legal Insanity, where my dream team and I break down the unusual, weird, and just bizarre legal stories of the day. First up, a deaf couple came home from a Hawaiian vacation, but the airline lost their bag. When they got it back, there was a note attached, quote, "Deaf and dumb." The airline apologized, saying a worker used a poor choice of words. So, Dream Team, is it case closed? Is there a case here, Darren?
Yeah, look, the court of public opinion, I think, will speak on this one and say that throwing them some frequent flyer miles probably isn't enough. I think that kind of insensitivity only changes when a company is forced to open up their checkbooks, Vinny.
All right, next, the guy says he got kicked out of a movie theater for bringing his own snack. He had some strawberries. Very delicious. He says he's a type 2 diabetic and wanted something healthy. So when he refused to throw out those fresh, delicious, juicy strawberries, he claims that the manager, had police throw him out. So, was he wrong, breaking the law, trying to sneak in a snack, or did the theater overreact, Joey?
Listen, Vinny, have you not heard the rule of thumb? If you're going to have strawberries, bring them for the rest of the gang. That's what it's all about, because sharing is indeed caring. However, listen, it's about reason, it's about discretion, and this is where discretion comes into play. You have type 2 diabetes, you need those strawberries in order to live properly and to view the movie with vigor and joy. Should not have been kicked out at all.
Trinity, us type 1 diabetics like strawberries too, you know. Darren, you have something funny to say. Go ahead.
No. But if you look at the revenue model in movie theaters, they make most of their money from the concessions. So it's just following the dollars there, Vinny.
Yeah. All right, next.
Follow the logic.
A man went to deposit $31,000 in his bank account, but the teller mixed up the names and put it in the wrong account. An 18-year-old got the money instead. Guess what? Deputy said he already took out $25,000. He claims the money was an inheritance from grandma. So, is this finders keepers, or is the teen going to find himself in hot water, Trinity?
I think he's going to find himself in hot water, Vinny. I mean, look, he should know. It's the sort of reasonable standard. Did he know or should have known that that $31,000 was not his? And my guess is he may be a teenage boy, and so he probably doesn't have all his brain at all the time, but he should have probably known that wasn't his.
Joey, finders keepers?
No, come on. You think he didn't know it was his? It's some inheritance? That's something that can be established and proven, and I suspect that when they do the paper trail in the investigation, there is no inheritance, and he was having a good time. Fork the money over.
Darren, isn't this like, though, when you go to a store and they put the wrong price tag on an item, you get to buy it for that price?
No.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm just a little upset that something like that's not going to happen with an unusual name like Kavanoki. We don't get those kinds of mix-ups. But I bet you the fine print when you're opening up your account protects the bank and allows them to go after and grab that money back. Although collecting from this teenager, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah,
good luck.
Good luck with that, right? All right, new information on a case we told you about this week. Razor blades glued to playground equipment. Now an NFL player getting involved.